I think that you're absolutely right. It is a different question, and it's a question I'm interested in asking. Surely this cannot be lost. These calculations cannot be lost on the Polisario, who, unlike the Algerian government and other governments who are supporting Gaddafi, have little to gain from his victory. So let me ask you a two-part question. First, what are those calculations that perhaps, what can they possibly gain from a Gaddafi victory, which seems unlikely? And second, what are the calculations of those regimes that are supporting the rebellion but squashing rebellions elsewhere, namely Saudi Arabia, who is supporting Bahrain in quelling the protesters brutally, and yet supporting the intervention in Libya to support the rebels there?
Okay, let's take the first question. The Polisario, I think, if I can understand their rationale for siding with the Gaddafi regime, even though now it's bankrupt and isolated and lost moral legitimacy inside Libya. I think in their minds, perhaps, the fact that they were for a long, long time, for 3 decades, at least 20 decades, they were supported by Libya and Algeria. And some were trained, some of their children were educated in Libya. Libya was a haven for them in the heydays of Libyan revolution and its slogans of liberation movement and also populism in Africa and anti-colonialism. But that's really, even the regime abandoned them long, long time ago. And I'll be really curious to see what else is going on. Perhaps also the Algerian government played a role in, who are the major patrons for the Polisario now, and the major supplier for food, arms, and diplomatic protection. At any rate, whatever the reason is, it's a very myopic, and I think it's going to cost them dearly in terms of their status in the African, Arab, and also international circles in supporting their cause for self-determination. As far as the second question, which I think is really relevant for us, and we have to think about it, there are a lot of people who are calling for Gaddafi's fall and the removal of his regime from power. But people have different, not everybody who is supporting the removal of the regime is really supporting democratic, pluralistic consent and other aspiration of the Libyan people. We have to keep in mind that many of the Arab regimes are not democratic themselves. I mean, the most reactionary and the most really, I would call them the counter-revolutionary now, is the Saudi government, Saudi monarchy in Saudi Arabia, who are really supporting the removal of Gaddafi and a few other Arab governments for simple reason. Gaddafi has been a thorn in their side. He mocked them. He called for their removal. He supported popular uprising, at least in the first 20 years. So they all will be happy to say, let's get rid of this really annoying, pain in the neck kind of rule in Libya. So in that sense, it makes sense, not necessarily because they want to see a democratic, pluralistic, civil government republic in Tripoli. They just want to get rid of our rival. As far as countries in Europe, I really worry too much. Even the French, who are gung-ho under Sarkozy's government, we have to remember that the Gaddafi, the Libyan government in Africa for the last 20 years have been butting heads and really checking the policies and the influence of France in West Africa. So we're talking about also getting rid of our rival, like the Libyan government, the Gaddafi's government in Tripoli. I worry also about, colonial officers maybe in this coalition. We have to remember that Algeria gained independence in 1962, and Libya gained independence in 1951. So, this is really, we have to reflect about that. What are the real motives behind really trying to get rid of the regime? And keep in mind, there is also the other important factor, which is in Libya, and in Algeria for that matter, the French still refuse to recognize the horrors and the brutalities and oppression of the colonial period. So here they are trying to get rid of the Gaddafi regime. Now, it's really pose the question, what are the real motives behind it? And furthermore, all these regimes, they may try to impose their own agenda on the Libyan people, which worries me a great deal. And I worry about post-Gaddafi Libya, where the new system will be influenced or manipulated, or the uprising will be appropriated for other people's agendas and interests. Unless, for heaven's sake, remember the lessons of Iraq, and be also guarded against some groups within the Libyan exiled community who may play a reactionary, very, very anti-democratic role in Libya, as the exiled Iraqi groups played in dragging the United States and fabricating information about Iraq.